Alright everyone, so basically what I will do now is just to see how I can make you understand the concept of the React hook called useContext, and we're going to be using it in conjunction with the context API, according to the new React documentation context. So like I've always been telling you, these concepts are concepts you can grasp on your own. So I'm just going to go to my browser and type in my search box use context. Okay, use context, and I would like to use the new or the latest React documentation to explain this. So let me find it. This is legacy. Alright, so this is it over here. Use context. So while that opens up, we are going to use it in this application, and this is, like we said, we are not really looking at how it is styled here. We're basically just trying to make sure that we understand the basic concepts about this. We are not really dealing with CSS stuff. So these are there are 4 pages in this application. So the first one that has an API call to get these items. I think more than 4 pages. This one is for this counter application. The next one is this about page that just has some text in it. This is coming from some other tutorials I've done in the past. Okay, you guys know what I'm talking about. So this is the 4th page, and I believe if I click on any of these items, it's going to take me to a detailed page here with the ID of the item I have clicked. Alright, so let's go to use context, and what we were trying to do is we want to use it to create something like a theme for our application, something like this, a dark theme and a light theme. So we can see here that the way it is being used here, the button that changes, or the icon that changes the theme of the application, is found in the header, right? And on click on it, it affects every other component in this system. So I prefer my screen dark, so I'm going to go back here and let's just look at this and see what's talking about. So the use context is a React hook that lets you read and subscribe to context. So let's read and subscribe to context. So for those of us who do not know what context is, good enough, there's a link here for us to look and check what context is. So this is important for us to know what context. It's important for us to know what context is, so that we can be able to use the use context React hook. So I'm going to open this link in another tab and quickly open it up. So this is going to tell us what context is and why we need context and why we want to use context. So I'm not going to explain too much because I think this is self-explanatory while I read. So passing data deeply with context. So usually you will pass information from a parent component to a child component using props. But passing props can become verbose. It means that it can become inconvenient if you have to pass them through many components in the middle. So basically what they are saying is, for example, if we have this, let's say this is the actual, let's say this is our app.js, for example, this is the component, and our app.js has a lot of components that we usually pass into it. For example, if you look into this application right now, yes, so we have a couple of routes. So this is in our app.jsx, right? And we can see that we have this header right here, and you have today's class, which is the component, and counter app, about, and child page, and all these guys are components, right? So if there is a state inside of this app here that we want to get to something, like for example, let's say in this counter app there's the button inside the counter app. We want a state here to be able to affect the button inside this counter app. We would have to pass the state into this counter app as prop first of all, and then pass it into the button as prop, then use that that value or that state or whatever it is inside the button. And most times we are not actually using that um, property or state inside this counter app. You're actually using it inside the button. So instead of passing it through the counter app before it goes to the button, I think we would like to just pass it directly into the button, right? But using props, we will not be able to do that. We will have to pass it down to the parent of the button first before it gets to the button. And I think there's an example here that explains this. So this is the app.js, right? And then we need to pass some state, this state into, let's say, these two components. So we need to pass this state into this guy here, and this guy moves it into this guy, and then this one has to bring it into this person and bring it into this person. So you can see that it does not get here because it's not needed inside of here, and also it is needed inside of here and it is needed inside of here. But these other two places that it is not needed, you can see that it has to pass through it. And why do we have to have a property inside of us if we are not actually using it, right? So this is basically what we're talking about here. So context is an alternative to passing props. In fact, I feel like it's when your application starts getting bigger and bigger, for you to maintain states you need to have a context. So this is an example here. You can come to the React page and look at the example that they used here. So it's quite self-explanatory. So we'll just go ahead and see how we can create context or use context directly here. So this is comparing it to this first diagram we saw over here, where we needed to pass this particular state into the parent component, or let's say this is going to be the grandparent of this guy, actually a great grandparent. Then you pass it into his grandparent, and then pass it into his parent before you can get it right. But this one here, using context, you don't need to pass it through all those routes. All we need to do is create a global context or something like that. This is where it is, and everywhere that needs it inside the application can have access to it directly. So it does not have to pass through any of the parents or grandparents. So we say using context in distant children, so we can use them in distant children and also in close range. So that's basically for that. So we want to create the context. This is the step one to create the context, right? So this is what we have. So basically we are going to do our own, because what we want to do is we want to have some kind of context inside this application to be able to pass some state around. So what I would like to do is so I have not created a button here that I would use to manage the states. I'm going to do something very shabby, but I believe you would understand as we go on. So I need to get some kind of button inside this header, or let me even make the header look a little bit pronounced. Let me add some CSS into the header. Okay, style. So let me give some padding. Let's see, 10 pixels around or 20 pixels around, so that it's just going to look a little bit better. Oh, that's not what I should use there. Should be having comma, that's an object. Alright, so I was using it was only going to give me 10 minutes, and I kept going and going and going and going. I didn't know that it had stopped, so I have to continue from this video to explain what I've already finished earlier. Alright, so let's see what I've removed some of the things I've done before, so I'll just start afresh. The only thing that you did not see me create was this dark mode button that's over here, so it's not working as you see it. If I click on it, nothing happens, and then the counter page is still the way it is, and the about page still the way it is, the chat page still the way it is. Okay, so let's come back here and let's go to use context. I think we have talked about create context a bit. So first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a context so that the use context will be able to subscribe to that context I will be creating, right? So exactly that's what I'm going to be doing. So you can come over here and read this thing. Everything I'm doing is basically coming from here. So I want to create a context in React, right? So create context, you can come over React there /reference/React/create context. So how do I create context? Okay, so first things first, I'm going to create a file inside my application. So this is my application tree. Let's see what is inside first of all. So I'm already been using React Router DOM to do this routing. So this is the child page. I use it to explain how we can create components that take in children using the children prop, and then you have a layout page for the new way to have I think this is called relative okay, I just forgot the name now. Relative routing or something like that. Absolute and relative routing. Yeah, so this is the layout that these two guys use. But anyways, this is not really what you want to talk about. You want to talk about use context and context API. So we don't want to keep passing props throughout this guy. If you want to make this a dark theme, usually this is where this is like the main parent, or let's call this the parent of the application where we're passing everything. But let's not forget that it actually has its own parent, which is actually inside the main.jsx, right? So we're going to create some context. That's the first thing we'll do. So let's create a new folder and call it context, and inside this folder I'm going to create a file. I'll call let me just say this is going to be theme context.jsx, since it's going to be .jsx, right? And then inside of here I'm going to just go and copy some code from inside my browser. Same thing you can do, there's no shame in that. So let's take this, well, let's just get everything from here and paste it inside of here. Yes, so what can I do? Yes, so I'm going to export this guy so that we can use it in other places in our application. So if you read the documentation, so I've created a context, right, called just the initial value. This is just the context. You can pass in anything here. You can pass in arrays, you can pass in objects, you can pass in numbers, whatever you want to be your context. Right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to, let me go and check again, so that I can be able to wrap my whole application with this context so that it can use it. So yes, I'll need to get this guy, theme context provider. So I'm just going to copy this man over here. Even though I'm not going to use everything that they're using, I just use a couple of them. I only want theme context, not auth context. I'm just going to copy and then adjust the code in my own browser. But first of all, I need to make this a function that will return this thing so that we would be able to use it so almost an application. So I'm going to say const theme, let's just call it theme, and see it's going to take children. So the children is going to be my applications, and it's going to return these guys. So I'm going to remove this auth context because it's not here, and this is basically theme context, and this theme context has a property called provider that we can use. So let's initialize this. Let's call it, let it be null first of all. Let it be null first of all. So we want to be able to use this guy somewhere else. So inside of here, we're going to create some states that we can use in every other place in the application. So let's say we want to create state, and let the state be theme, small letter theme, and so that we can change the state while the UI changes. We need to use it as a use state variable. So initially when we come into the application, we want the state to be light, as if the theme should be light. So let me import use state over here from React. Right, now I'm passing this theme which I just created here into this theme context provider, but I need to export this guy so that we can use this thing over here. But one more thing, I need to say this guy is going to accept children, right? So whatever you pass inside of this theme provider or this thing that will export, let me even export it first of all. If I forget, export, wow, export default theme. So I'm exporting this one as a default, and then this one just a normal export. Why is it? Oh, so that I'll know exactly how I'll call the both of them whenever I need them, right? So let's save this. I was saying something about yeah, so when I return this thing, whatever I pass inside here should be the children, so that they can have access to their parents states, which is this context. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to try to use this guy to wrap my application so that my application will have access to this state value. So the best place I prefer to put it inside this my main.js, because it actually holds the app, so it's going to be on the topmost part of my application. So I'm going to import theme here. I exported theme from, where was it, dot slash, I think it's inside context here, and theme context, that's fine. So I'm going to copy, just cut this guy first of all, and then just say theme, and then remember theme is going to need children, so we're going to pass up as the children or the child of theme. So let's go back to application and see if it's still working fine, if there are no issues. It's okay, we are still good, it's still working fine. I think every route is working okay. Let's check that. Alright, all routes working fine. So let's first of all see if we can access that state which is inside our context API now to inside of this or any part of our application at all. So now let's use this first page that will come to here. So it's already logging something to the console in counter app. Well, let's go directly. If I refresh this here, do I get anything in the console? No. So let me make use of this particular page and get access to the context. So let's open our pages. Well, first of all, let's see where we need to go to. Okay, to this class, which is the initial or the home components. So let's, yeah, so this is what we have. There are a couple of things inside the here that I've commented out that don't really matter. So let's just take use context here. So we want to use context here to be able to subscribe to that context that we just created. So we also need to import the context that we just created inside of here. So because we exported it this way, we are going to destructure it inside of this place and say import theme context from, I think we need to go up one and theme context here. So we want to use context to subscribe to this theme context. So how do we do that? We're going to pass this, the result of the subscription, into a variable, and for now the variable is a string value which is light. So let's just say const theme, let's put it that way, is equal to, so we're going to subscribe using use context to theme context. Right, so let's over here, let's see what theme produces. So console.log theme. So whenever this component renders, we're going to see what value theme is, which should be displaying right. So light, we can now access the value of that theme inside of here, which is good. So let me just confirm that this is working fine. If I come back into the theme context and I change this value to dark and save and come back to my application, we should be getting the dark. Right, so let's utilize that. How can we utilize it? So inside of here now we have a set theme functionality, and we want to be able to change the value of theme from light to dark. Let's take it back to light because we said we want it to be light whenever we just come into the application. So let's create, usually I'll create one function, right, and I wouldn't be using light or dark. I'm just going to be using booleans to do this, but let's keep this simple with light and dark. So I'm going to create two functions to change this state from light, and the second function to change the states to dark. First function to change the state to dark, and the next function to change the state back to light. So let's create these functions. I'm going to say the first function is let's just say dark mode. So now the next thing we're going to do is say what to set theme to dark, and then I'm going to copy this person down here, and I'll just say be light mode, and change it back to height here. Right, so we want every other part of our application to have access to these functions, right? So we need to pass them into this place also. But mind you, now this is a string. We would need to now pass everything, this theme, this dark mode, and this light mode, as just a data type, just one data type. And what data type help us do that? You guessed it, an object. So we're going to make this an object, so you can pass in theme, dark mode, and light mode. Okay, so let's say passing in dark mode over here and light mode. These are the two functions. So you will notice something. If I save this guy and I come back to my browser and I check, I'm going to get the whole object back. So I'm getting dark mode, which is the function, light mode, which is also a function, and then this thing, which is light. So if I want to use any of these guys, I'm going to have to structure that object. So let's come back into where now, to this class, and the structure theme. So if I save this guy, we're going to get light back in the browser. I'm so sorry, I'm doing this quite late. So we have light in the browser. Now let's make use of those functions. So where would we need those functions actually? Let me just take this out. We need to use them in the header. So let's go to the header, because that's where we have this button that will change this the theme of the application from light to dark header. So let's go and receive those guys there. So what are the things that we need to receive here? Don't forget, we need to get a theme. First of all, we need to import use context from that, and you also need to import theme. What did you call it? Theme provider. Let's be sure. Theme context. Yes, let me just take it directly. Theme context. Theme context from /. Context, and then that. So let's receive everything we need to receive in here. I think we also need the theme inside of here to change some the headers state. So let's receive theme, also receive dark mode, which is the function, and we receive light mode, second function. And you're getting it from when useContext subscribes to the theme context. I hope we get this right. So we now know what this is and know what this is. So we're going to now make this button work, because right now it's just sitting down there doing nothing. Let's make it work. So why am I doing this? I want to say if the theme is light, like using 3 equals to, so don't mind me. I think you should mind me, because it's very important to use it. So I'm saying if it's light mode, then let's have a button that says change to dark mode. And if it's not light mode, which means it's now dark mode, let's have a button saying change it to light mode. Right, so fine, cool. Now we want people to change this thing from light to dark. Well, let's just confirm that this code we have written is working. So this is dark mode and nothing happens. So let's go back and change it to dark over here, or anything. If I change anything here, still going to change it up. So we're going to say dark. Since it's no longer light, then we'll have something else here, which is light mode, which is good. Let's take it back to light and save. So back in our header, we won't be able to change this thing without having to go to the context to change it. It's by ourselves. So let's create a function that will help us to change. We have already created the function. We just want to call these functions inside of here. Wow, I'm feeling sleepy. Okay, so because it's a function, we don't want to call it directly. We want to put it inside of a callback so that it only happen when we click the button. So let's say dark mode, to convert it to dark mode, right? Then we just copy all this, and inside of light mode button, I'm going to say light mode. So now this is working fine. How do we test this? So if I click on this, change to light mode, click on it, change to dark mode. I don't know if you can see this clearly. Let me increase my screen a little bit. It's 125 and it's not still increasing. I don't know if it's increasing. I can't just notice. So dark mode, light mode, dark mode, light mode. And now let's use this to do something in our application. So let's use it for a style in our application. So let's say, let's give this guy a style. We're going to say create an object for the style. Let's say header style, and say the background color of this guy. Background color of this guy, this is an object. If theme is equal to light, should be, let's say, tomato, and if it's dark, let's see, gray. And then I'm going to use this header style for this guy holding up everything. So I'll paste it inside of the header style. So I'm going to save, and I'm expecting to see that my guy is now gray since this is light mode, dark mode, and I click on light mode. It's now working the way we expect. So let's use it in other places of our application. I'm just going to do it in one more place, which is down here inside this man over here. So we're going to go to a different component now, which is in today's class. So we already have collected the theme from this context inside of this place. So let's use it to do some style for our component. So let's say style is going to be equal to some kind of, let's just say background color. Thank you for type that out. Now background color is going to be dependent on theme. That's what I want to say. If theme is equal to light, then we want the background color to be the way it is, white. Else want it to be, say, black. Okay, use green, not to offend anybody. Let's use green. So let's come back to application and check if that we can find dark mode. Right, so I think gray is now going to blow out our header. So let me just make it a different color. Let's see, dark green. I don't know if it's going to be A or, alright, so that gray now seems lighter than gray, whichever one. I think we should make it really like a dark theme if we want to make it a dark theme. So let's come back here and say we want it to be a dark theme. So let's make it black. But if we make it black, our card wouldn't be visible, right? Even though we have some shadow around it, then or whatnot. So let's use this same thing and affect the cards itself. So let's come to the card now. Since they are linked, or since it's a link, I'm going to do something. So now background color if theme is light, then it will be black according to what is already there, and if it's dark, let this be white for the cards. And we're going to add something else, so let me just copy this, because all I just want to change is the color, and I'll just change a couple of things because it doesn't have to be the same. So for here I'm going to say if the color sees that the theme is light, then I'm going to change this to white. I think this will just be universal. Then if it's